Hey, what's up everybody? So I went ahead and I reprinted the Green Goblin helmet, the portion that fell and cracked and broke, and I'm using the Overture filament, so it's nice and solid, and I just now need to get this thing off of the build plate. Alright guys, so we were able to take this out. It's definitely a lot easier than the last time I took it out. That made me very happy. I let it thoroughly cool down. It's been maybe a couple of days since this is finished printing. So I just let this thing cool down and it really was easier to get it off the print bed. But yeah, we're gonna get this thing cleaned up of all of its supports, and I'm gonna start going to town, sanding it, and getting it attached to the rest of the helmet. All right guys, see you in that portion. Hey, what's up everybody? We're here with the Green Goblin helmet. This is the reprint. Used about a full spool of filament for this. A lot of it went to the supports, but we're just gonna get the supports cleaned up and then get it ready to get sanded afterwards. Let's get the supports off this thing. Alright guys, I'm here with the Green Goblin, and just like before, I'm going to sand with the electric sander the parts where I'm going to glue them together so it has a better place to adhere, such as this part as well, and this part. And then I'm going to go in with some 120, 150, as well as 220 grit sandpaper, and attaching it to the sanding sponge so it can get into all the grooves that we know and love about the Green Goblin. Alright guys, so let's jump right in. Alright guys, I'm just going to give this a wash. Alright, that is ready for continuation. So we're finally at the point where we're going to filler primer it. And I'm very excited for this. We are finally continuing with the spray painting here. Let's get started. Alright guys, so I taped off the mouth area so I can spray paint the teeth a silver color, and I'm going to be using this here. This is the Rust-Oleum Specialty Metallic, a bright reflective finish. Alright guys, there you go. It did a really good job. Just took a couple of sprays here and there, and that coated it really nicely. And now I'm going to move on to spray the jaw piece. Alright guys, it was as simple as that. This is also looking really nice. It feels like you're just dusting that silver coating on there as opposed to spraying it. But there it is, and the next step is painting this whole entire thing green. But before we get there, I'm going to have to glue all the pieces back together. And if there's any wood filling that needs to be done, I'm going to do that as well, where the seams are, and then we'll go from there. Hey, what's up everybody? So I wanted to jump in and kind of talk about what's going on here. So shout out of sorts to Gavin Townsend. He ended up making a comment in the previous video I had about possibly using a soldering iron to weld the mask together, and I got a soldering iron here, and that's exactly what I did. After having reprinted this mask and painted it, when I went to go glue it together, everything was just warped out of shape. This back from here and on, the back piece was just warped. Part I printed was warped, the jaw piece was warped. So I sat there with a glue gun and heated everything together and back into shape as best I could. But there are some pretty big seams here. I was trying to glue it together, but the seams were just too big. So I went ahead and I got some filament, as Gavin Townsend recommended in the comments of my last video. And I set it down where the seam is at, and I just started melting it in, and it's just rock solid. And I'm gonna demonstrate what I did to this back plate here. This piece is good, this is just glued together, but I do want to demonstrate how I use the filament piece with the soldering iron to create a strong bond. All right, as recommended, I threw on my breathing mask, and I'm gonna check to see if my soldering iron is ready. And it looks to be ready. It's melting it nice and easy. I got this piece of filament, I laid it down where the seam is at, and I just started melting it like this. Then once I had that in there, I just went over it with the soldering iron to melt it flat into place. And that is solid. That is so solid. And that's what I did all along here and in the jaw piece. Alright guys, well I'm just going to continue with this, and we'll catch up when it's time to paint. Alright, what's up everybody? So I just wanted to take a break and kind of talk about where we're at with the Green Goblin here. So basically there was a big moment where I had to stop and work on, let's just say, the stability of the Green Goblin. So before I used glue, and I held it together by glue, and as I was putting this piece back together, the one that I reprinted, onto the other parts like the jaw and the back of the head, I noticed that each piece was warped in a different way. So what I had to do was I essentially had to get my hot gun and heat the areas that were off and kind of mold it back into place. I glued a little bit that was lining up right. Then I went in and I hot gunned it and until it got hot enough where it was malleable, and then I put it all together. And there were huge gaps that you can just see light coming through. So I thought to myself, you know what? I'm gonna weld it. So I welded it all together. It's as solid as a rock. And then I went and I did with wood filler. And then I sanded it, and now it's at this state. The next part is I'm gonna give it another sandable primer round. And once that's done, I'm gonna take it straight into the tester's color shift. It's actually a green copper. That's gonna be really fun. So just wanted to kind of fill you in on where I'm at with this. It's looking really good. I filled in most of those gaps. It's gonna look really nice and ready to take it to the next stage. All right guys, see you at that point. Hey, what's up everybody? So the time has come to use the tester's color shift green copper on the Green Goblin mask. Let's go to town. Hey, what's up everybody? So we got that Green Goblin spray painted green, and now I am ready to do the eyes. So I went in and I bought this UV visor from Amazon. It has that real nice yellow look that the Green Goblin is known to have. And my goal is to use the hot gun to melt it and bend it into the shape of the eye that I 3D printed. Okay guys, so I'm gonna get started here. All right guys, so it didn't work. Thing just melted and didn't really have a whole lot of malleability. Kind of warped into an ugly way. However, I did also buy a backup. It's a motorcycle visor. So let me give you guys an example of how this is gonna look. And it don't look half that bad, honestly. That's looking pretty cool. I got some colored lights in here, so it's a little hard to see the green, but it's definitely doing a great job. All right guys, well I'm gonna figure out how to put that in, and when I do, I'll turn on the camera and record that as well, and show you guys continued progress. Alright guys, so that little piece that was left over from the visor as opposed to the glass for the motorcycle helmet, I ended up going with the visor because it has a way better yellow tint. When I put it side by side, I like this one better. Alright guys, now that that's screwed in there, this is what it looks like. Alright, the last thing left on this thing to do, the last two things, is to put the screen mesh behind the teeth and also put some good old foam in there so your head is comfortable. Alright guys, see you then. Alright guys, so the last but not least is the grid for the mouth of the Green Goblin. And what I ended up getting is an embroidery grid for arts and crafts. And I went ahead and I 3D printed the mouthpiece here. And I know that I want the grid to come out diagonally, so I'm gonna do it diagonally here. And that's where I kind of want to get it cut out. Alright guys, now that this is cut out, I'm going to go ahead and continue cutting it out closer to this shape here. Alright, so that's looking real sweet. Alright, what is up everybody? So I finished the Green Goblin. I got it spray painted green. It's looking fantastic. Got that mesh in there. Got the eyes all ready to go. I put some foam in there for when I put my head in it, and it looks fantastic while it's on. It fits perfectly. Loving it. This was a real journey for me. This was my first ever attempt at 3D printing and finishing a helmet. And honestly, this thing was a challenge, but super duper fun. There were challenges along the way, but overall I'm very happy with it. And it's by no means perfect, but I love it. There are some things I would change, some techniques I'll use differently. I'll definitely be more careful in the future to use better filament. For this specific green, which is the green copper, which looks fantastic, it's better to use a glossy black underneath it, and I used a gritty black that has like a grainy texture to it, which is a sandable primer black, and it was matte. My option was to go back and sand all the green down and respray paint it black, but I didn't want to do that. Maybe in the future I will, but as of now, I'm just super pleased with this. It's looking fantastic. And the reason why I would maybe go ahead and do that in the future is because I have spots like this. I don't know if you can pick it up in the camera, where it's real sandy. And that's because of the sandable primer. And not the filler primer, sandable primer. But other than that, it's going good. This specific tester's color shift I used is very runny. So keep that in mind if you guys end up getting the tester's color shift. When I was spray painting it, it ran. Let's see if you can pick it up in the camera. There, and all this, that line there. Let's see if I can get it at the right angle. Yeah. So it ran a little bit, but it's totally okay. I'm still very happy with it. Looks cool. Another thing I wish I could have captured but couldn't was the bulging of the eyes. This is just pretty much like a curved flat surface, but if you pay attention to the Green Goblin's eyes, they are bulbous. The molding process was not as easy and forgiving as I thought, so I went ahead and I did this method, and I am still very pleased with it. My options were to get some sort of thinner plastic, clear material, and melt it over this, It wouldn't have this shiny, reflective, color shifting, yellow greenish look of the eyes if I did it that other way of getting some clear plastic and then melting it on top of the bulb eye there and then tinting it. So I just decided to stick with this because I just think this shiny green, yellow, orange, metallic eye thing plays really well with it and captures the Green Goblin's eyes very well. Another thing I'll change is I'll definitely not use wood filler in the future. I'd probably use Bondo. I heard Bondo for cars, like car Bondo stuff, is a lot better. Why I wouldn't use the wood filler, because when it hardens, it can just completely be wiped off with water if it gets wet. And it also leaves a gritty, sandy surface, so you have to wash it, be very careful with it. I ended up blow drying it with cold air to get all that sand off. But nonetheless, as a first go, I'm super happy with it. It fits on my head really well, and I will show you that right now. All right guys, but before I show you that, I wanted to show you the inside and how I got it all put together. So this thing warped under the sun, or let's just say it wasn't directly under the sun, but under the heat of the sun, as well as a lot of parts of the mask, as you saw during the build. So when I take this out, I have to kind of squeeze it in and then take it out like that, because it's splayed outward while it's out like this under the sun. So what I have in here is I have the lenses, and what I did is I just used 2 screws on each lens to screw it onto the border part of the inner part of the eye. Likewise with the mesh piece here, I ended up just screwing one there and screwing one up here to the border of the mouth as well. I put a piece of foam there just to kind of prevent the mask from wobbling, because my nose was kind of touching it and not touching it at certain points. And I put also another piece of foam here, and this is Pilates foam I got from like the dollar store. It came as like 2 Pilates blocks. Yeah, I just put it there and I cut it out to this thickness because when I have it on my head and this isn't here, it sits too low on my face. And then as you know, I have this piece here, super solid. I 3D printed this piece, and this is a really strong rare earth magnet that goes onto that piece of rare earth magnet that I also 3D printed a post for and put in there, and it just magnetizes on. And I tried gluing it before with that really good glue, didn't work, so I ended up spending a lot of time soldering, welding this 3D printed piece to the helmet, and likewise with this, and boy is it solid. This thing ain't going nowhere. Oh, one other thing is I did end up soldering, welding all the pieces of the helmet on the inside together, as well as this piece here, as you can see there and there. And I also created these hooks here that I 3D printed and 3D modeled and 3D printed myself, so that the back piece can have somewhere to latch onto there, and then the magnets would be engaged and it'll just sit solidly there. Alright guys, I'm gonna get this thing on and show you what it looks like.
Hey, Spider-Man!
Alright guys, well this is the Green Goblin helmet on my head. And just like how I had it 2 months ago on that computer, this is exactly how it turned out. I'm gonna do a turnaround here. Alright guys, yeah, this is it. Very happy with it. Sits on my head, it wobbles a little bit, but for the most part, when I turn my head, it turns with my head and it feels really nice. I got that mesh on there so you can't see my mouth as clearly like it is in the movie. My eyes can see right through the lenses, and this thing is just fun. I can't wait to wear this either on Halloween or at some sort of Spider-Man event. And this is just gonna be real fun. But this is the Green Goblin build. I got some really cool stuff coming your way. We're gonna be doing the laser blade from Lightyear, the new Lightyear movie. I just thought that laser blade thing was just so cool. And so I went ahead and I modeled it. The model is ready. It's ready to be 3D printed. And so in the next videos, you're gonna see the 3D modeling process of that laser blade. And then we're gonna go ahead and start 3D printing all the pieces and putting it together and having a life-size, real good-looking laser blade from Lightyear. And there's a lot more cool stuff coming. I got the very large 3D printer from Creality, the CR-10 S5, and I got another 3D printer that I'm going to show you guys as the videos come on in the coming weeks. So please be sure to subscribe, click that notification bell, share this video with people you think that might benefit from the techniques used to build these things and also the 3D modeling. And make sure to click that like button if you're liking the content. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm to bring these videos to your feed. Alright guys, well, until next time, peace, love, and joy.